Oh my God. All right. So, Nathan, have you had light off in the past few weeks?
Yes, Tuesday night.
Only Tuesday night. Because
Yeah.
I think almost every 3 days I have power off.
Tuesday night. Before that, Saturday and Sunday, it went on off a few times. But Tuesday night, there, Charlie, nothing.
The whole night.
Can you believe that, Bernard? Just when I had gone to drink water and I was coming to sit down and watch Real Madrid and Man City,
The light went off. You just convert it into a prayer meeting. Your light went off.
Charlie.
Well, the reason I'm asking this question is that we spoke
and
to
it turns out a lot of people experienced that power cut on Monday.
And Gridco is affirming this. So get the long version. Jifa Bampo Behu, I think that's her name, has been speaking to us on the interruption in power supply recorded in some parts of the country over the past few days.
So we've had a gas supply challenge from Nigeria. That's been the fundamental reason. But it has led to a multiplier effect, meaning that our plants, our generating plants which use gas cannot operate fully. Some of these plants can operate with liquid fuel oil. And for those who can, and for those that have stock, they are able to generate. But what it is that on Monday and on, I think yesterday, we had challenges getting a full capacity of the power supply. And that is why there's been this intermittent power supply. We apologize to Ghanaians for it, because ultimately, if there's going to be any shortage, even if it's for a day, I think we are obliged to inform Ghanaians, and we didn't do that at this time. So really, I think efforts are being made to purchase more fuel oils so that the plants that can't operate because there's no gas with the...
All right, so that was Jifap Bampo speaking to us earlier. Let's come to the line and speak to the ECD MD, Samodubik Mahama. What do they know about this situation? So Jifa is explaining that it's a gas problem. Mr. Mahama, thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Oh, good morning, Bernard. How are you doing?
I'm very well. So a few of our listeners have complained about intermittent power outage, and the reason we're asking you to comment on this is you just finished a big revenue collection exercise.
Yeah.
Held a triumphant press conference last week. So for people to now be suffering power outage after paying the money that they owed you, it's a bit of leaves a sore taste in the mouth. So what is going on from the perspective of ECG? What's your understanding of the current situation?
So with ECG, we only sell what we get. If what we are looking for in terms of gigawatt hours doesn't get to our doorstep, we cannot give to our customers. And what we get is what we pay for. So, for instance, what has just transpired from what the Gridco has just put out is there was a low pressure gas issue that led to we having to dump some power, over 230 megawatts of power 2 days ago. Steps have been taken. Some alternative fuels have been bought. But let's say in the terms of using light crude oil, their plants will have to recalibrate before, so it takes some time. One of the plants that really helps in this situation is SunPower, because they can just switch from gas to diesel easily. AXA can also switch from heavy fuel oil to gas easily. So those two ambidextrous plants are the ones that normally come to our aid. But at this point in time, we didn't have enough, there was no HFO. The DFO, which is the diesel that was available, also kicked in, but it didn't allow for as much power as the grid needed within that period. So that's why we had to do that during the peak hour. But that being said, this morning, ACG has also done its best to close the gap as quickly as possible by helping get some heavy fuel or the HFO. and some diesel is also going the way of Sen Power and Co. So we just want to make sure that we have some good amount of stock for alternative fuels to the gas. Everybody uses gas because it's cheaper, but a situation can be likened to having a generator at home that runs on water, but you also have to get something else just in case you run out of.
I get the explanation, but say one of the questions people have is what determines which place goes off. So in the specific case we are discussing, the Power Enclave is where these power plants are that depend on the gas from Nigeria. So in the temporary situation where the gas is not coming and they have to rely on a different oil type and switch, there may be a period where the light has to go off. Who determines whether it's Medina that goes off or airport or Kokomilimli?
I would say it would have to come from the transmitter, because after the power plant has given whatever, he knows what he's bringing in. He knows which bulk supply points to send them to. So I believe strongly it comes from the. I may be shifting too much burden on the transmitter, but I would say it's a shared responsibility. Actually, it's both GRIDCO and ECG determine how the flow should be, so that it doesn't affect other northern parts of the country. So through that, you're able to determine which portions can stay alive and which portions can go off. Some people are of the belief that it's done based on business, and it's not done based on business, and so that you can say East Legon are very good customers, so they should stay on because they have. Because as I'm speaking to you, East Legon was off during the Monday incident, so that is not the case at all. When it happens like that, it's about equitable sharing of the power within the country, so that the entire nation or half the nation or something like that doesn't go off. So we try to make it an equal share through the country.
So finally, on this point, what do you know about the solution in terms of an alternative oil? Are you saying that as we speak, we have managed to get heavy fuel oil or another type? So as we speak, the matter has been resolved?
As we speak, the matter has been resolved largely. There's enough heavy fuel oil with AXA, and there's some diesel with Sen Power. So if we are to see this anytime, we would not have any of such problems going down the line. But we are then not going to have to make sure that at every point in time, there's enough standby fuel for this situation.
Good. Somebody from the power sector wants me to ask you that now that you've collected a lot of the money owed you, how much do you now owe the power producers?
The power producers, we are actually in conversation with them about the way forward. Let's not forget one thing. The whole structure in the power industry has to be relooked. There were things that have happened that have put us in a very, very precarious situation. And we just need time to have an entire conversation. We are currently in meetings. We have a meeting with one of them today. When we are done and we are able to have a proper structure, the requisite amount of monies would be paid to everybody. The understanding will work, and then we have a better framework moving forward. But currently, you can equally be saying you are pushing forward right now with the legacy debt and with debt from this year. We should be pushing, with all the power plants together, we should be pushing close to $2 billion.
Because you had said that you were hoping to recover about 5-point-something billion cedis.
Yeah. But all of them cannot go to the power plants, though. You know that.
No, I'm coming. I was going to ask, so of the 5.7 you were owed, how much were you able to recover in the 1 month exercise?
Out of the the whole exercise, we recovered about 3.1 billion.
A little over half.
Yeah.
And is the recovery going on, or you do it in phases? So are you resting, or you are continuing?
No, we are not resting. It's going on, and there will be a big one by the end of the month too. As for the month-end big ones, you will definitely see us. But as I'm speaking to you, I know the task force is all around the nation on an exercise right now.
So you collected 3.1 billion. Were you able to pay some of your power producers, using some of this to pay some of them too?
We gave them some money, but not all the money. We gave them some money, and we are actually in talks with them about the way forward to have a proper structure on how to pay them so that we can always be current on our bills. The problem we have now, which is also one of the reasons that even the country's financial situation is being downgraded, is there's lack of certainty. In every business that you do, nobody is saying don't borrow. but how you service your debt and how constant you are at servicing your debt gives you a lot of credibility. That is what we have lost now, and that is what we want to bring back, because we need to have everybody at the table for them to understand this is how much we can give you every month, so they can also plan with their lenders towards that. If we are able to structure that, we would have a very good framework moving forward, and everything will become within the power sector. So we actually are having meetings, and very soon we should be done, and then we can hit the ground running.
All right, let's move to the next issue. And indeed, before I even ask the question, I just got a text message from a person. It says, "Good morning, Bernard. My name is Godwin Ayipa. I bought 300 Ghana cedis power with the ECG app in October last year. But up to today, my meter has not yet been credited after several visits to the district office in Afienya. I'm using Godwin's text to ask you about your much talked about app, which still people are complaining about."
My brother, he spoke about last year, October. Which year, which month are we in now?
No, he said as at now, the thing has still not been credited.
So this is what I would advise him to do. He should dial *226#, or he should go onto the app and report this problem. Follow the prompts and the steps; it will be corrected. I admit that before the end of the year last year, the app had a lot of problems and it was being fixed. So I admit to that incident, but what I'll say is that steps have been taken. Other people's purchases that have similar problems have been restored. And so if he wants it to receive the requisite, attention as quickly as possible, he should just go through the app. They would trace that transaction and he'll be restored as quickly as possible. That being said, the app has gone through so many phases, and right now, to be very honest with you, we at ECG, we are proud of the app. It has a 4.5-star rating on the Google Play Store. We believe some more education needs to be done, and we are preparing that education for it to happen. Now, when a transaction doesn't go through, the money is reversed immediately into your wallet on the app. So we are taking certain pragmatic steps to make sure that things that were not happening on the old app are happening in the new app, and the app is working at its optimum. We are doing our best to better our internet service, because MTN has upgraded its service to us, where Main One has connected to us. We are just about to go live in the next 2 days with Main One. And let me take this opportunity to announce that we've actually gone cashless, physically cashless in all our offices. We had gone cashless in the other form where a bank was assuring our revenue. But now we have actually turned off that button. So load up on your mobile money when you come to the ECG office. And
when you say you've got a cashless, is this in the ECG offices or at your vendors? Because I think last 2 weeks I went to buy with cash.
The ECG office.
Okay. So in the ECG offices today, you are going cashless today.
Today.
Is it for all meter types?
So the truth of the matter is, when you come to our office, note that nobody will take physical cash from you. Everybody, you'll be given a prompt to pay by Momo, or you'll be given a paying slip to go into the nearest bank and pay, or you can use your bank card to pay, or the transaction will be transferred into the ECG app. So everybody is entreated to download the app so that we do our payments through that.
Did you announce that you were going cashless? How come I didn't hear?
Bernard, you see, when I came to your office and we were even talking the other time, you hadn't even heard about a few things. I had to do it on your phone for you.
Yes, no, I'm not saying that for such a big thing, don't you think we needed more public anticipation? Because, look, you've said it now that I guess you announced it in the past. It probably escaped me. But it's such a major thing that for all ECG offices, you are going cashless. So that if somebody is listening to me from Jelukope today and she's going to the ECG office and she doesn't have a phone, she can't buy a credit?
Bernard, the last time I was even on your shoulder, I announced it. I announced that it was happening and it was going to happen. So we have actually made it very simple. It's a very simple assimilation thing. Even you can use a Momo agent to complete the process. It's not as complicated as it may sound being said simply, but it is actually a very, very easy process. the education part of it has been prepared and will be, our very good friend, Mr. Boateng, will be sending all of those things out as quickly as possible concerning the whole process. So please bear with us and we will do the necessary education.
So is there a plan to extend this cashless to your vendors eventually? So now that you've started in your office, should we expect that at some point in the future, going to a typical ECG vendor would also be a cashless experience?
It will depend on the vendor. It will depend on the vendor because we have had other companies come to us talking about also setting up their own app to vend for us. So that they become third-party vendors. So they are also speaking to us. So very soon, maybe someone like that will also find a way to integrate these third-party vendors. That's fine. But as I even promised you the other time, very soon, in about a couple of weeks, you will now be able to use the card to buy the power from the back of your phone. The only thing we've realized is that some of the cards do not have the requisite ability. So we've got about 2,000 of those cards now. So the moment we are about to launch that, we would make a very good publicity on that. Those who want to enjoy that service can come to our offices for a card replacement so they can purchase through the app. Those are the non-smart meters that use it. So we are actually going through a phase that we'll just ask our customers to bear with us so that we can provide them a convenient service while we make sure that the upstream is also working well.
So the big announcement is that in all your offices in the country, ECG is going cashless, and if you pay with Momo, it doesn't attract e-levy.
That is it, my brother. Simple as that.
Wonderful. We'll leave it here. Thank you, Samuel Dubik Mahama. He's the MD of ECG, announcing the cashless era of ECG, and the fact that paying with Momo does not attract e-levy. I think that's a significant one. Because we do know that the Momo was affected by e-levy, so a lot of people decided they were not going to do it. So I think it's a good one they struck. So you pay, and I think it will probably reduce the queues in the ECG offices.
Yeah.
Just that I don't know how well distributed the ECG offices are. A lot of us still depend on the agents, and some of the agents are very moody. So I actually prefer going to ECG office to buy than to go to an agent. But there's something I want to discuss here. So Sky, you read a story this morning that. So Jifat told us, and Dubik has confirmed that we were having problems with gas from Nigeria. So we had to quickly switch to heavy fuel oil. Okay.
And that problem was what? The gas couldn't get to us.
Either Nigeria didn't have gas or the pressure was low. Good. Now, whilst we are doing that, a total of 25.3 billion cubic feet of natural gas worth about $169 million was lost in the upstream petroleum sector through flaring. Which means you just burn it. Now, the 2022 Public Interest Accountability Committee report on management and use of petroleum resources revealed this. The volume of gas flared in 2022 increased by 19.3% compared to the volume of 20.1 SCAF in 2021. Now, this figure is about 10% of the total of 253.56 BCF of both associated gas and non-associated gas produced from the three main fields. So Jubilee, Sankofa, and 10 give us 253.5 BSC of gas. Now, this doesn't make sense to me. So I'm going to call Ben Boachi to explain how this is even happening. So in the same week that we are having to have power off because we are not getting gas to power some of our plants, particularly in the Power Enclave, we have triumphantly announcing that we burnt almost $170 million worth of gas because we didn't have any use for it. Ben, am I linking these two issues correctly? Am I right in linking this recent power outage over lack of gas from Nigeria to the SPIAC report? Ben Boachi, ASEP CEO, thanks for joining us. Am I right in linking the two?
No, I think you're absolutely spot on, Bernard. We cannot actually separate policy inactions or actions to ensure energy security or gas security for power generation. Because as a country, we decided that the cheapest alternative for power generation is gas. So if that is your cheapest alternative, then your energy security is to diversify the sources of gas that ensure that at all times you have enough gas to be able to generate power, because that's where you get the cheaper fuel to be able to generate cheaper power for your consumers. But usually when you hear policymakers speak, they look at the diversity of the fuel source. So they want a little bit of liquid and then the gas. And then you find out that even when the gas is not available, the liquid is also not available. So it's not even secured in the first place. And that is where we got it all wrong. I mean, the last assessment we did between 2019 and 2021, the flared quantity was about $300 million of gas, which means that this is gas that could have been utilized for power generation or for other industrial applications if we were, getting the policy toolkit right for us to be able to utilize the gas that we actually produced in Ghana. The sad reality also is that we have what we call no flaring policy, which means that the companies are not allowed to flare the gas. But where there is no commercial avenue to use the gas, you cannot compel them not to flare for operational reasons, because you can inject, but only so much of injection can happen at a particular time. So even though we have a no flaring gas, which is supposed to ensure that foreign companies that are producing the oil and gas actually have incentive to sell the gas to the market for us to use for other industrial applications, they have to flare it because they don't have the option to send it to the market.
Why? Okay,
failed over time.
Why is that? Why is that? So you have gas fields in the western part of the country. Your power plants are in the eastern part predominantly of the country. So is it that there is no means of transporting this gas from the western enclave to the eastern enclave, for which reason you still have to depend on Nigeria? Is that why we are flaring this gas?
Okay, good question. So we need investment to unlock the gas. So once you produce the gas, you need to process it. Our gas processing capacity is about 140, but we usually do around 120 max because of the capacity of the plant. So we don't have enough capacity to process. So ordinarily, we would have had to construct another processing plant. Or if we had a modular, processing plant, we could then increase its capacity. But because we have a fixed plant, we need to build a new train or a new processing plant to be able to take on the additional gas that is coming from 10 and Jubilee to process them before the power plants can actually use them. But over the years, we've not been able to do the investment. So it was known as, back as 2012, that before 10 will come in, we will need a second train because the first train was going to process Jubilee gas. We needed a second train to be able to process the gas. That has been on the drawing board forever. All right. And that's essentially because government policy was for government to do it by itself. And the experience with CDB constructing the Atuabo gas processing plant makes it difficult for us to raise capital on our own from the market to be able to deliver the second train. There has been options of bringing in private capital to be able to deliver it. But again, it's the normal practice where in Ghana we think in years and not in seconds. And so years pass and the project is never delivered. So that is why we are where we are. So we are flaring the gas and we are looking for liquid fuel, import them with hard dollar that we don't even have.
So Ben, just to explain, you are saying that we don't have, Ben, you say we don't have gas processing beyond 120 mm. So if you talk of gas processing, are you saying that the associated gas and then the non-associated gas need to be processed before it can be used in the power plant?
Yes.
And we don't have the capacity to process it.
You need a lean gas, which is essentially methane, to be able to use for the power generation. So when they split them, that's where they get the LPG and other condensates, and then the methane is used for the power generation. So it has to be processed. With Sankofa, for example, which is the ENI gas, they do very minimal processing. So that one is done because it's a non-associated gas. So they produce that and just ship the lean gas to the power plant. But for Jubilee and 10, because it's associated, they have to process it to be able to get the lean gas for power generation. So once you don't have the capacity to process it, then we are faced with the challenge of having to re-inject or flaring.
So in the ENI case, they transport this gas through, is there a pipeline from the west to east?
Yes. So that is another conversation. So we have invested money, about $180 million, to build the infrastructure to reverse gas to the east. But if you still don't produce enough, you don't have enough to be able to transport to meet shortfalls if they happen, because you're always going to have these challenges. It's known that intermittency, operationalizing the pipeline, once in a while, you have a compressor failure, you have problems, and you will need to have an alternative. So if we had enough in the Western Enclave, you could then pump that to the east for the plants in the east to be able to utilize those gas for power generation. But because we don't have enough, we are flaring what we are actually producing, then that means that we still have to wait for Nigeria to kick off before we can have enough gas to generate power.
So
I just always think that we're getting the policy actions wrong, and that is why we are where we are. I mean, for example, if you have ENI that is producing and being the most consistent producer, you could as well tell them to say that let's do the minimal investment we need to do to improve your output, so that even if you are doing 200 SCF a day, you have a throughput capacity of about 400 SCF. That allows you to pump in more gas when we need it. All right. And these are policy conversations that if you have with the owners of capital, those who have invested $7 billion on that field, they'll be, because when we were not able to do the reverse flow, they stepped in to finance the $180 million to do the reverse flow. And if they have done that investment, then we are paying for it. We can make use of that infrastructure. It doesn't make sense to have put that infrastructure there in the first place, or to have done that investment. So we have to think holistically along the value chain to see what is possible, so that these kinds of explanation, always explaining to the consumer of power how gas is not flowing, how a transmission line is having challenges, is because it's easy to explain and go get a high five and say, oh, I was able to explain to the people and they're okay. But it shouldn't be our business to know how power gas is produced and how power is produced. But that is the environment. We have allowed these kinds of explanation without doing the hard, heavy lifting of doing the policy right and ensuring that we can actually always have the cheapest source of fuel available for power generation.
This is serious. Now, in terms of private sector interest in gas processing, you've spoken about ENI. Do we know if there's demand and interest in setting up gas processing facilities so that the gas from the 10 and the Sankofa fields will be useful in a lean form? Do we know if there's any demand for, or there's any interest from any investor in doing this?
No, I mean, last year, I think Ghana Gas signed an agreement with a company to set up a new processing plant. We don't know where that is going with that. We also know of the GENSA, arrangement that was supposed to also set up another processing plant, which we had problems with because of the commercial arrangement, which really undermined the interest of the state. Because you are discussing with the producers of the gas at a price of around $3 per MMBTU, and then GNPC was signing an agreement to sell the gas at 2.79. So the question we asked is, who was going to offset the difference? If you are not even selling to make a margin and you are selling at a discount, how are you going to recover the price that the producers are selling the raw commodity to you? So the commercial terms for that arrangement really skewed in favor of the investor, and the state was still going to lose money by putting that system in place. So I think that also stalls the investment a bit, and then we don't know where that also is, because Parliament was supposed to have investigated, issued a report based on the concerns we raised. Since last year, the report is still not out, and there's no conversation about the alternative. Because once you are flaring, by the time the investment comes, you also find that the gas may have either so significantly depleted that you can't get the throughput, and then you still have to pay the investment that you would have signed on take or pay. All right, once you are finished flaring the gas. So there is huge economic loss. We're just talking about PIAC reporting of the 2022 of over 160 million, with the 3 years of about 300 million. So in total, we've done close to 500 million of flaring in the past 4 years alone. You're not even talking about other economic loss. If you injected that gas into the economy, the jobs that it would have created, the businesses that would have benefited, the tax revenue that would have resulted from either payee and the other. That hasn't even been analyzed. So you're running into several billions for the loss of not planning and activating the gas potential of our resources. And
sorry, did you say we had flared $500 million worth of gas in the past 4 years?
So what I said is that we did an assessment between 2019 to 2021. And at the time, we have flared a little in excess of $300 million. So PX is also reporting of 2022, which is 169, right? 169 million. So it's close to $500 million of gas has been flared. Right? And so in the energy sector alone, if you pick about 3-4 tickets of inefficiencies and poor decisions, you are running into several billions of dollars, all right, which could save this economy in this critical time. But we are still wasting resources propping up those inefficiencies because of policy inaction.
It must be frustrating doing analysis in the sector, but persist at it. Thank you very much for your work. That's Bemboachi of ASEP. Fascinating. So probably $470 million of gas fled in the past 3.5 years because of lack of investment into gas processing.